also tell you about, the fashion industry. Let's talk about that. Mostly fast fashion is incredibly harmful. Interesting fact. What would you guess the second most polluting industry in the world is? First, well, it's oil, obvious. Second most polluting industry in the world is fashion. The fashion industry is incredibly harmful to our planet. And there's quite a few reasons for this. Mostly, like, their production means incredibly harmful. The regulations along with the producing of clothing is just, like, not up to par with what they should be. There's a lot of dumping of not very great chemicals into water sources, onto lands, and polluting them. There's also an issue of fast fashion. Okay, fast fashion is the making of clothes which are not high quality, so then you use them for as long as you can, but you don't get that many uses out of them. After a few washes, they kind of start to fall apart, so people get rid of them, and they replace them. But people seem to think that this is okay, because most of the fast fashion clothing that they would buy is very trendy stuff that you might not be able to wear for more than a few months before it goes out of style anyways. People are like, oh, this shirt was cute, like, last summer, so I can just throw it away anyway. Who cares that it fell apart? But if people keep thinking that and they keep buying from brands like H&M or, Shane or whatever, Shine, things that are, like, very low quality clothing, very low quality materials, that are meant to, like, not last very long and just be disposed of after being worn for a very short amount of time, then that creates more demand for more of those clothes because you have to replace your clothes, And you might not want to shell out the prices of higher quality material clothing, so you just keep buying and buying and buying all of this fast fashion, these fast fashion articles of clothing, and then unless you're donating these or selling them, then they're not getting reused, they're going to the landfill. And when they're going to the landfill, well, it's just continuously producing this large amount of waste that we can't really do much with. Once it's kind of gone, once fabrics are kind of in the landfill, there's, like, no purpose for them. They don't really do much of anything for us, especially if they have, like, polyester or other plastic materials in them. They're very harmful. They don't really help with anything. They're really not even high quality things that you would want to necessarily wear for long periods of time. That's what, like, a lot of my clothing now I buy from Tentry and brands like Tentry, who they plant tent trees for every article of clothing you buy. That's not why I buy them. Specifically, I buy them because their clothes are, like, higher quality, they're better made, they're made more sustainably, they use less water in their production. To make a pair of jeans takes a ridiculous amount of water. The demand the fashion industry has on water sources is actually, like, extensive and, like, very, very crazy. And it's just very harmful. It's just a very harmful industry in general. There are brands that do a very good job, like Tentry, like, I think her name's Eileen Fisher does a good job, something like that. But the majority of brands like H&M or just department stores who shell out all this, like, low quality, short-term, trendy clothing are just very harmful. And the pollutants that they spill out while they make these clothes, the pollutants that come from the disposal of these clothes, the sheer amount of, like, buy and dispose, like, that repeated demand and really, like, lack of long-term use is just not very good for our planet. It's one of the biggest hurdles to us combating climate change is probably the fashion industry, especially the fast fashion industry that has become so popularized, because if you watch TikTok or Instagram, you'll see people do these things where they go, oh, Shine haul, let's look at what I ordered. And when they do this, they start showing you, like, they bought 20 pieces of clothing, and they're like, oh, it only cost me $100. It's such a cheap shopping spree. Why would I not purchase their clothes? Like, why would I not save this money? Why would I not spend my money where I can get so much bang for my buck, But the reason they shouldn't be doing that is because they're harming the planet. It's active harm to the planet. If you want to say that you want to help combat climate change in the world, you should limit your purchase of fast fashion items. Otherwise, you're contributing to the second most polluting industry in the world at this moment. So, like, I don't know. It's just a whole thing. And, like, people don't think about it. Like, whenever I've told people, what do you think the second most polluting industry is right now? Like, what do you think is one of the most harmful industries in the world? Like, everybody guesses number one. Everybody goes, oh, number one is probably oil and gas. And, like, they're right. But nobody guesses number two is fashion. Everybody thinks number two would be, like, I don't know, like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, agriculture. People think agriculture is a bigger contributor, which agriculture does contribute a lot of pollution. It is a large source, but it's not as problematic and doesn't pollute as much as the fashion industry still. So yeah, buy sustainably made clothing that is high quality and you can wear for longer periods of time, or buy secondhand if you can, because if we keep buying at the rate that we do from companies like H&M that just pump out clothes that we have to rebuy every 5 wears, then we're just screwing our planet over more and more. Also, I don't know if this is everybody's experience, but the clothes at H&M aren't even good. Like, I get they're trendy, but, like, they put some stupid stuff on them sometimes. Like, I didn't even want to shop there before I knew all this, but after knowing all this, I just couldn't feel okay about shopping somewhere like that. Personally. Which, I will say there is a significant hurdle in the fashion industry also, that there is a financial difference between buying fast fashion and buying high quality, sustainably made clothes. If you want to buy a t-shirt from Tentree, that Tentree shirt is going to cost you $30 minimum, unless it's on sale. Versus if you want to buy a shirt at H&M, you can get like maybe 3 or more for that same price. So people go for H&M because, again, that whole idea of like bang for your buck, why would you not want to get the best deal? But is it the best deal when it's going to fall apart when after you've washed it for the 6th time, versus if you buy the more expensive shirt, it's going to last you 10 washes. But it also is a hurdle to the fact that there's this whole economic idea of the cost of being poor, which is really interesting if you read about it, and like you can see in everyday life in application, not just in theory. It's not just a theoretical concept, it's one that you can actually see happening. And the idea is basically that, let's say you wanted to shop, if you were going to buy paper towels, okay, you have enough money to buy, you have $10, let's say. Well, for $10 you can buy 2 rolls of paper towels, or you can spend $15 and you'd get 6. But you don't have $15, you have $10. So you buy 1 or 2 for your $10 that you have. And, okay, wait, no, I'm going to readjust that. Oh, no, because I said you get 6 feet. Yeah. So it's per unit, it'd be much cheaper to buy the 6. But if you don't have enough money to buy the 6, you can't do that. You don't get those savings. And you also have barriers, like if you can't afford your own transport, if you rely on public transport, or you choose to use public transportation, you may not have the same accessibility to stores or to the transporting of things that you would buy at that store. So while you might go to Costco, you might not buy as much at Costco, or you might have to make multiple trips if you wanted to do all your shopping at Costco because of the size of their sale items or their bulk items. So the cost of being poor mostly is like most practically seen in the purchasing of bulk items versus what you can actually afford on a regular basis. Because a lot of people in the world, especially like in the US, you know that they are living more closely to paycheck. So if you don't have the extra money to shell out to get 6 rolls rather than 2, even though it's only a $5 price difference, then you're losing money in the long run, but you can't really do much about it because you can't afford to buy the 6 roll at once. And there's like websites that like put this into like a simulation of like how does this work specifically, and I can't remember the title of the one that I'm thinking of, but it might be called The Cost of Being Poor. But like you can see this all the time. Like if you're going to Costco, you see people that they have enough money to buy all of their food in bulk, and they pay $100 for groceries for the groceries that they can buy in bulk for that will last them a month or 2. Versus if you're going to Walmart or Target, you might be only be able to buy the bulk groceries, paper goods, that kind of stuff that'll last you 2 weeks. But then you have to repay for it, and you're going to be still paying that higher price per unit, which will just be diminishing your savings over and over and over again. And you just get like stuck in this cycle where you can't afford to save that money on the bulk items ever, really. It's one of the, like I don't know how you would fix it and make this a more equitable thing in the world. I'm not sure that it's really something that can be done very easily, but it is like a serious issue. But it also, this applies to like how fast fashion has become so popularized and so ingrained in, I'm going to use the US as an example for the most part because that's where I live, where people, they might be able to afford a higher quality clothing item that's going to last long, and they might be able to buy better shoes that are going to last twice as long, but they might rather go for the shoes that are half the price because they can get 2 pairs. They can buy their son a pair and themselves a pair, or they can buy the half price pair and then they can also afford to pay for a field trip, you know? It's just very hard. The world is just very hard in general, and confusing and complicated, and there's a lot of issues that are more complex that the solutions are really hard to even come up with in theory. I do think, though, that for fast fashion, at the very least, that problem can be eliminated more so if those fast fashion companies were held more accountable, and if they were forced to either charge more for their products or pay fees for the pollution that they cause. Or if sustainably made clothing was able to become more mainstream and therefore lower in price as the means of production become cheaper due to the increased efforts and innovation of better, more sustainable clothing factories and such. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah. That was also like a really long thing about fast fashion, but it's a really interesting topic, and it is a very, very, very big contributor to climate change, which is bad. We don't like climate change. Climate change is not good. And very, very scary.